We're happy to have Tony Thomas back here at the Postmark Jamboree this month. Just introduce yourself a little bit, Tony. And
I
tell
am
us a little
Tony
bit about
Thomas,
yourself.
and I'm a native of here in East Tennessee, born and raised in Anderson County, but I was born October the 2nd, 1944, right here at the Lefaunet Hospital.
Downtown.
And they took me home the next morning to a little place, coal mining settlement called Briceville, and I stayed there till I was in the 5th grade, at which time my daddy had left the coal mines and he took a job at the University of Louisville with the maintenance department, and we moved to Louisville, Kentucky. And then I came back in high school and lived with my grandma till she passed away. I stayed with her till I was 17 years old, right there in the little hamlet of Briceville.
What's some of your earliest memories of music or musicians?
Oh, wow. To hear my grandmother sing, and my Uncle Bill Housley, he was a great mandolin player, great guitar player, and a good bass player. He was one of my earliest mentors too, to sit and listen to Uncle Bill, and I learned some of my first music on one of his old guitars. But it's my grandmother and Uncle Bill, they influenced me heavily. Of course, I was influenced by a lot of people that I would hear on the radio. I still remember the Midday Merry-Go-Round and a lot of them people. And actually, through the years, I actually got to play with a few of them here and there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, around the same time the Midday Merry-Go-Round was going on, they had the Tennessee Jamboree here in Lafayette.
Right.
And you have some memories of that too, don't you?
I played those places. Elmer Longmore was in charge of them. And I remember about 3 different locations right here in Campbell County that I performed with a little bluegrass band I had called Mystery Mountain Boys. But I became friends with Elmer and the great Red Harris. Red worked with me a lot at the Museum of Appalachia, bass player. Me and Red was, so we were good buddies. And I worked the last few shows with Monroe before he passed away. We were good friends. And I have a lot of music friends here in this Campbell County area, and still do.
Mm-hmm.
But I played a lot of those programs for Elmer Longmore at the Jamborees.
What locations did they used to have the Jamboree at?
I remember one down here at the American Legion. Then I remember one here at the theater, right here downtown, that he had the Jamboree. Then up Powell Valley, he had a real good one up there too. That's the 3 I remember the most. An old fellow named D. Carson had a Jamboree too that I played quite a bit. It was over here on Tennessee. And it wasn't near as big a building, but it was a good building and had a lot of good people that supported country music. I played quite a few shows for him. I think Dee was from around Elk Valley. But anyway, he promoted some country music around this part of the country.
Now, we were talking earlier about vinyl and CDs and streaming and digital music. Over the years, all that has definitely changed.
Yeah.
What's the earliest recorded music that you think you can recall? Was it 78 records or was it something?
Yeah, I
like
remember
that?
the 78's real good. They used to have this old crank-up Victrola, that we played the 78s on. And there was a good collection of them. People around home there at Briceville, a lot of them had those old 78s, and a lot of them had the Victrolas in their house. But, I've still got, I think, a few the collections of 78s at my home, and got a lot of the 33s and a lot of the 45s.
Yeah. Vinyl sort of made a little bit of a comeback in the last few years.
Well, I'm glad it did. My first record was a 45.
Yeah.
And it had 2 of my originals on it. That's back when I was with the Mystery Mountain Boys. We were together as a band for way over 25 years, and we wasn't only bluegrass. We played a lot of other stuff too, and we worked a lot in Campbell County. We sure did. And
Where did you record that 45?
Cumberland Records in Oliver Springs. Fellow's name was Mr. Hal Duncan. He was a dear friend of mine. And I done a lot of sessions there through the years for Hal, him and the great Luke Brandon and people like that. I worked with a lot of different musicians. I done a lot of sessions with Cumberland Records and done a lot of my projects there too, as far as CDs and cassettes. And done 1 record album with them.
Now, I've got a few of your CDs here that that you've given me, and this is Tony Thomas, and the Strawbriar Ridge
Sawbriar.
Sawbriar
Yeah.
registration sessions, and then the Rome County Ramblers.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about this CD.
All right. Uncle Jimmy McCarroll was the fiddle player, and Lou Brandon's father was the guitar player. And right off the bat, I don't remember the name of the banjo and mandolin player, but they were popular back in 1920s, and they've done several recordings, and they made some hit recordings for the time period. Uncle Jimmy was a composer of instrumental music. He wrote a song called Hometown Blues, and later on a duet by the name of Grayson and Whitter, a blind man, played fiddle and a guitar player. They also recorded Hometown Blues, but they called it Lee Highway Blues.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of people know it by Lee Highway Blues, and a lot of people know it by Hometown Blues. But that was one of his major hits for the time period. And Green River March was one of his hits. He wrote that one. And Johnson City Rag, Uncle Jimmy McCarroll was responsible for a lot of fiddle tunes that we hear today. And I first met Uncle Jimmy in the early 60s at the Oddfellows Hall in Oliver Springs. They would have a fiddling contest about once a month. And Uncle Jimmy and his son Charlie, which was my buddy for many years, who played guitar and fiddle. But anyway, they were there, and I got to play some with Uncle Jimmy. Then I got to play with him a little bit in the 80s at Carl Bean's Big Valley Barn over in next to Norris and Clinton.
Mm-hmm.
I got to work several times with Uncle Jimmy McCarroll of the famed Rome County Ramblers, but a lot of history with these people, a lot of history. Uncle Jimmy and all his boys played. Tommy McCarroll, he's a great friend of mine. Of course, he's gone, and Charlie just recently left us. And Charlie and I were in the band, the Sawbriar Ridge Rambler. Charlie was a phenomenal fiddler, and he wasn't altogether old time. He could play bluegrass, country, or blues. He could do it all on a fiddle. And his style was much like that of his daddy, Uncle Jimmy.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of fiddle history in them McCarrolls there.
You've also written a book, Boyhood Memories, Tony
Yeah.
Thomas as a young boy growing up in Briceville, Tennessee. If someone wants a copy of the book or the CDs, can they get in touch with you?
Yeah, you can contact me.
I'll put your address
And email and everything.
email
Yeah, and I can get them out to
on
them.
the
Yeah.
screen when we do the.
That's very interesting. That's through the eyes of a young boy, the way I seen it when I was growing up. And it's all true. I don't write no fiction.
Now, you've written probably at least 100 songs, I believe. if
Yeah,
not
at least.
more. Tell us a little bit about your songwriting process. How does that work?
Well, I'm usually inspired by something that happens. A lot of times it could be of a sad nature and sometimes of a happy nature. But there's usually 99% of my songs are true story songs from things that's occurred in my life or other people's lives that I was close to. And I like to say all my songs have a story. Now I wrote some humor stuff that didn't have a story behind. But for the most part, I've written a lot of Christian music, gospel music, and what some people would regard as bluegrass or country. But I wrote a lot of songs, and it's all about something or somebody.
Mm-hmm.
And it's funny how that happens. When I'm inspired to write, it comes to me. The lyrics comes to me most of the time real fast. Sometime it'll be 2 or 3 days before I'll finish one. And sometime I'll finish one within 10 or 15 minutes. And the music melody comes at the same time. I don't know how to explain it.
Now, all the songs we've recorded today were all original.
Yeah, they're all mine. Yeah. Yep. And some of them were 10-minute jobs. Some of my best works was written within 10 or 15 minutes. I've even had a few that I dreamed, and that next morning I'd get up and write it. Actually, have.
Well, we're glad to have you here at the Jamboree this month, and we'll be sure to get you back. And,
Well, I'll be looking
we
forward to
appreciate
it.
you coming and joining in with us, and we're out here in the lobby
Yeah.
beside the old post office boxes today.
I'm glad to be with you, Tony. I always enjoy coming up to Follett and being with you and all these good folks, a lot of good friends here.
A lot of good
It's
memories.
Like coming home.
All righty, well, we appreciate it. Thank you.
You're welcome, sir.